Good evening, everyone. Food and nutrition security is a main outcome of sustainable food system. As the world population continues to grow, much more effort and innovation will be urgently needed in order to sustainably increase the agricultural production, improve the global supply chain, and decrease food losses and waste, and ensure that all who are suffering from hunger and malnutrition have access to nutritious food. Many in the international community believe that it is possible to eradicate the hunger within the next generation and are working together to achieve this goal. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on linking food security and sustainable nutrition. Today, we have with us Dr. Kirupa Krishnaswamy, Assistant Professor, Department of Food Science, University of Missouri, and Dr. N. Tarni Devi, Assistant Professor, Department of Sciences, AIC Coimbatore. I would like to welcome both of you to join us for today's discussion. Now, without further ado, let's get into the discussion. So, Kirupa ma'am, I'd like you to give a brief introduction on what is food security and what are the factors contributing to food security.
Thank you, Ninja, and good afternoon, everyone. Food security is a complex challenge. It is when it's defined as when all people at all time have access to safe, nutritious, and sustainable foods. And this is like a very concise definition because the complexity of the food system needs to be incorporated into it, and the complexity of the nutrition security needs to be incorporated in it. So as we learn more about food and nutrition security and our understanding widens, there's going to be much more defined definitions on this. As for currently, this is what we have defined, uh, and there's going to be a lot of growth in this area as well. So there is no fixed definition, I would say, because it's a complex challenge.
Yes. So what are the sustainable methods to attain food and nutrition security?
Okay, that's another complex question. As I said, let me go back to why we need this, and just give me 1 second. So why do we need this, right? So as you see, this was in the year 2000, in 1950, we were around 2.5 billion people on this planet Earth, right? And then now we are around in 2022, still we are around 7.5 billion people on this planet. And the next thing is by the year 2050, we are going to be around 9 to 10 billion people. The biggest question that comes to mind is, how do we feed these 9 billion people sustainably with healthy food? That's what is the key here. And the question that you asked, right, what do we have a method or a single method? Actually, there is no single bullet to solve this problem. And that's why we need multiple disciplines and different methods to solve this complex challenge, because currently our knowledge is only till here, right? Even with this, we are not able to sustain it. And if we are going in our population, this full gap, we still, our knowledge gap is going to widen here. And that's why we need students, like people, to think about this. And there is a lot of room and opportunity to grow to address this global challenge. Okay.
Okay. So, Tarni ma'am, would you like to add anything to what Kirupa have just told? And also, if the world produces enough food to feed itself, like why does hunger still exist?
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. As Kriba ma'am was mentioning, that we are now ready to feed around 7 to 8 billion people, and our estimate is supposed to increase to 9 to 10 billion in 2050. But still, more than a billion people are suffering from hunger and undernourishment. So although the world had succeeded in reducing poverty, the target for food security and adequate nutrition is not yet achieved. I believe in that, and I understood that. So this is because neither the markets nor the government sectors, they does not protect or they provide any access to sufficient and nutritious food to everyone. Understanding the root cause of hunger, that we call it as food insecurity or malnutrition, the major causes are the poverty and inequality rather than the shortages. There are various other causes, which includes job instability, unstable markets, war, conflict, climate change, etc. But here again, poverty and inequity remains the major root cause for this issue. So, looking into the poverty statistics, in the middle income countries like India, the social protection, this reaches about quarter of the total population. And this quarter population are living in extreme poverty regions. So, leaving about nearly 500 million people without food for their daily lives. So, this millions of people around the world are simply too poor and they're not able to afford for themselves for their daily lives. This is what we actually understand as food insecurity here, because they lack resources to grow their own food. Like they don't have enough land, they don't have the means to harvest, process, and store food. So at one point of time, whatever food we produce, again, it ends up with food wastage. So our inability, maybe the nation's inability to feed the entire world's population is mostly due to food waste. So this waste is again due to lack of infrastructure and knowledge to keep foods fresh. For example, if you take India, the loss is around 30-40%. And this is due to lack of infrastructure and preservation, processing, storage at the farm level and at the retailer level, even at the wholesalers level. The preservation and storage facilities are not adequate. But in more developed countries, if you look into this issue, the lower relative cost of food reduces the waste, incentives of waste. So, improved social protection for an individual can help to ensure the adequate food consumption and enable the individuals to feed themselves for their own nutrition and health. So, I can actually propose that measures should be taken to reduce the poverty and improve food processing through efficient technologies. Government should improve the technologies provided to food industries, which would actually break the gap between the food hunger or the food security.
Okay. So, do we have enough human capital to improve the nutrition sustenance of the vulnerable people in our country?
Yeah, we have that, but still we are not utilizing it properly. The issue is there are plenty of resources available, but the utilization rate is very less.
So, Kiruba ma'am, like, what is the reason for the recent increase of hunger?
Okay. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Okay. So the recent rise of hunger, actually the start of the 21st century, I would say, we saw a lot of calamities, right? In India, these statistics are from India, like the Gujarat earthquakes and tsunamis we saw. Then there's floods, and throughout the world, when such natural calamities um, when climate crisis happens, when conflicts happens, it predominantly affects the vulnerable people, right? And now we are in a COVID situation. Whenever something like this hits, it always affects the poorest of the poor. Around 80% of people when 80% of people living in the rural areas, like landless and fishermen communities, tribal communities, are drastically affected by hunger, and around 20% living in urban slums and areas. So, as I said, what are the reasons for increase in the hunger rate? Is because of these complex, interconnected social, economic, political challenges. And like the statistics, like in 20, we were in the 2015-ish, around 786 million people were affected by hunger. Like I'm talking about chronic hunger. But this number, 821, that was the statistics that we got in 2018 and 19. And this affects around 1 in 9%, right? If you have 9 people, 1 person is affected by chronic hunger, which is in the 21st century, we shouldn't be talking about chronic hunger. That's a big number. And this number, this statistics was before COVID, right? COVID has exaggerated this whole thing, and there are projections that it's going to increase at least 10, like no, 4 to, we don't have an estimate, but it's going to increase this number from 821 million to at least 10% more. So that means that's a lot of people, and it's going to become, the effect of COVID on hunger is going to be so drastic that it's going to affect all the progress that we've done for the past 20, past 2-3 decades. So that's why it's an alarming problem. And also, when you ask about hunger, actually it's much more deep. Like whenever we talk about hunger, we always think about chronic hunger, but there is something much more dangerous, and that we don't talk much about it. That's called the hidden hunger. And this affects more than 2 billion people on this planet. Like roughly, we are around 7.5 billion. So 2 billion people is like 1/3 of the world. Irrespective of developed countries or developing countries, everyone is affected by hidden hunger. And this is due to micronutrient deficiencies. And around 7 million children, before they reach their 5th birthday, die annually because of malnutrition. So we say children are our future, but we leave around 7 million children. And that's something, like, like it's such a crunching issue that affects a lot of people, and that's what drives my research. So thanks for that question. And regarding another question that you asked about the human potential, we need people. There is a need, and we need to create this awareness, and we need the youth to think about these problems, to come up with these innovative solutions. So there is a challenge and there's opportunities. How do we bring this together to solve this crisis problem is the need of the hour.
Yes, exactly. So, can you just share any successful models in nutrition sustenance from a global perspective?
Yeah, give me one second. I do have a very interesting story to share.
Great.
So this was, heard about double fortified salt, DFS salt. Actually, in India, let me share the story, because it brings the technology. Because Dr. Tharani was talking about, we need to have every stakeholder in play, from the producers to processors to the technology, right? So here is an example of how a technological solution could address the challenges of food and nutrition security. So this picture was taken in 2015, and unfortunately, it happened in India. And let me go back. Why India? Is because India is one of the countries that is worst affected by anemia. Around 50% of women of reproductive age in India are anemic. That's exact. If I say, if you meet 2 Indian women, one person most probably might be anemic, right? And the most sad number here is this number. Around 70% of children are anemic in India, and that's the highest percentage in the world. So, and this iron deficiency anemia affects around 6% of our GDP, right? So this is why this particular project was piloted in India, and I've had the opportunity to contribute towards it. So I'm sharing this story with you. So what we did is, let me share. This is how ferrous is. Like, it's a iron compound that's used in fortification of food. What we did is, we took iron and we did some agglomeration, then sieving, cutting, and microencapsulation to form a premix. And then we added with salt. This is the technology used for making iodized salt that we use every day. You take the salt solution, iodize, and when we blend it, it forms double fortified salt. So pictorially, this powder is extruded to form the ferrous fumarate, and we mask it to form look like salt. And when we mix it with salt, you can see that's salt and that's the premix. And if you mix it with with the salt that we are consuming every day, you don't see you'll not visually see it. So why we do these coatings, why technology is important, because you don't want to have the interaction of iron and iodine, because these two micronutrients are important. Iodine is important for mental growth, health, and cognitive development. Iodine and iron is helpful for addressing iron deficiency anemia. But the problem here is chemically they're not compatible. If you put iron and iodine together, then they will sublime, right? So that's a technical challenge. So what we did is we coated them so there is microencapsulated them so there is a barrier that prevents iodine and iron interaction. And once you put into the salt of, you don't see much change. And apparently how that's the technical part of it, right? Now I'm going to share why we need to have different stakeholders to get this technology to people. So the research happened in Toronto, at the University of Toronto. It was funded by, the university and researchers came together to address this challenge. It was food industries in India, JVS Foods and salt producers joined together. So, along with NGOs, international NGOs like the Gates Foundation, GAIN, and then we had local NGOs like Tata Trust and the state government, the government of Uttar Pradesh, government of India, government of Canada. So when all these stakeholders came together, we could take a technology that was developed in the lab to reach around 24 million people in these parts of Uttar Pradesh. Okay, so and DFS we piloted in 2018, and it was reaching 24 million people. Based on the success, currently it is reaching around 60 million people in India. And it's one success story how something as simple as salt could be helping to improve the food and nutrition security of people. And it also addressed multiple sustainable development goals, the zero hunger, SDG 3, good health and well-being, gender equality, and partnerships. So that's why if we have to have a global impact, right? You asked a question about how a global example. We need to have multiple stakeholders. We need to have multiple disciplines coming together to solve one problem. Because here in this particular challenge, we were all focused, how do we address iron deficiency anemia in India? That was our ultimate goal, right? So people came together to solve that problem. So that's one example that I would like to share.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So, ma'am, you throw light on the links between agriculture and food security?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agriculture and food security, actually, let me see if I can pull this up.
Yes. Yes, Tadri, ma'am.
So agriculture food linkage of nutrition is very important component in the food system, in the whole system. It has its own important role to play in incorporating the nutritional aspects and in responding to the needs of the people and the environment. Agriculture can contribute to nutritional outcomes through the cultivation of the underutilized crops, indigenous crops, biofortified foods, and also through the employment of micronutrient efficiency or enriched fertilizers, and also by improving some of the agronomic practices such as crop rotation, soil conservation, etc. Till date, there are some measures taken to link the food and agriculture in terms of nutrition. Also, investments in terms of agriculture, such as improved irrigation and bringing down the drought tolerant crops, which reduces the price and income variability. The nutritionally improved crops, So we have to promote the nutritionally value-added crops or improved crops to give access to better diets. Still, many agricultural projects haven't been designed with explicit on a nutritional objective. Rather, they have been focusing on calorie intake or economic factors such as cash growing crops instead of promoting local crops or seasonal crops which have high nutritional value. So overall, we can say that there is a need to tackle the nutrition from the farmer side, consumer end, the folk side, all the way from production to consumption, involving again all the stakeholders, in particular those who can influence consumption patterns. Unless these interventions considered along with the food system, it will be difficult to substantiate, or strengthen the linkages between the agriculture and nutrition. So we definitely want to deploy some more scientific methods in food protections, higher involvement in procurement by reducing the intermediaries so that we can lower the price, and which can be done actually through the agri-food linkages to attain the better nutrition security. Also, the government level steps are being taken, efforts are being taken to improve the nutrition security. For example, the World Bank is promoting Secure Nutrition Program. It's an initiative aimed at bridging the knowledge gap between the agriculture, food security, and nutrition. So, applied to the nutrition, agri-food linkages has to be promoted, has to be bring into the action, reducing all the intermediaries, lowering the cost so that it is easily affordable to the individual at any cost.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, do you think for the highly growing population, organic agriculture could produce enough?
I could fairly say no to this question. We should not tell something wrong, right? It's a fair answer. So, organic agriculture involves careful handling of the environment and resources, we all know. And this has put forward as a potential solution to the challenges that we are facing currently right now. But on the other hand, critics, they have pointed out that this shift of organic methods would entail a much higher level of land use and therefore cannot be considered as a viable alternative source for achieving our demands because our demands are high. The reason because organic yields is generally lower than the conventional farming. Organic agriculture, in spite of the lower production per square feet area, it is still profitable than the conventional farming. But it's doubt that it requires more knowledge and labor, but less expensive inputs. This may actually very well fit to the situation in the poor societies, where there is actually usually a lot of labor available, shortage of material means. So this will therefore be a perfect match for self-sustaining agriculture. But this organic agriculture, if you just take it in mind, we have to look into sustainability for the long run, whatever it is. So this is good in case for sustainability, they can restore the soils and ecosystems that have been degraded by conventional farming. And the monocultures, the chemical industrial approach, they do a lot of damage to the systems in the climate. These depend on the reservation of fossil fuels, and this bring large risk to the food security with them. So in the long run, it is clear that the natural resources must be maintained in order to feed the world. So we must accept that.
Yes.
And this means that we need conservation of agriculture with closest nutrient cycles and appropriate organic farming techniques. Apart from the food security, organic farming has its own advantages, like such as the better health for farmers, better water storage, better soil conservation, less damage to the climatic conditions, or more improved biodiversity. But on a realistic approach, we could claim that at least 50% of organic production would reduce the food waste half of what we are doing right now. We are throwing a lot now. We are wasting. So this may moderately support us in achieving better nutrition security, the halfway, rather than producing enough.
Okay. So, diverse crops and how can we improve the dietary diversity in the plate of people?
Actually, I would like to add, like Dr. Tarini said some amazing points. Those were excellent. And to add to that, and to connect your question regarding the bio increasing, there is a lot of crops, like forget orphan crops like millets and so on. Those could be regenerated because in terms of nutritional value, all these are drought tolerant, they're climate resilient, and also they have high nutritional profile, amino acid profile. So reviving back these ancient grains, ancient crops, and increasing the biodiversity, that could also be a potential solution. Because currently we are just focusing on few, like altogether 7 to 8 major crops. That's what is being consumed or produced in a global scale. So if we could diversify, that will be an excellent solution. And to connect your organic farming question, there's something called regenerative agriculture now that's coming into place because we cannot solely depend upon organic, we cannot solely, so we need to come to a sustainable balance. How are we going to get the maximum and without damaging the natural resources of the planet, and respecting the planetary boundaries, because as human beings we have taken them for granted. Unfortunately, we cannot do this if we think about the future generation, right? So considering that, getting that balance is going to be the most critical thing. And how, so that's one thing I should add.
Very
Exactly.
sure, not very sure.
So, would you like to add something, Tarnima?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So your question was, do we produce diverse crops and
Yes.
how to improve the dietary diversity at an individual plates, the individual
Yes.
plates. So dietary diversity is nothing that is completely associated with the household or the individual food availability and intake of nutrients from different food groups.
Yes.
This is an important component of nutritional outcome. So although our food systems superficially deliver some impressive or abundance variety in food, we are losing crucial agricultural biodiversity, and our increasingly the homogenized diets are leading to various diseases, especially the cancers, obesity, and other non-communicable diseases. The world is at risk because the dietary diversity is actually coming down. We have variety, we have created variety through food technology or food industries, but the inclusion of different food groups is missing, basically. So, at the same time, the world's agricultural biodiversity is also at risk. Agricultural landscapes have becoming more increasingly simplified as the number of crops, crop varieties, the animal breeds, and that is grown on farms, all these declines. The loss of agricultural biodiversity actually coincides with the trend towards the homogenization of our diets. Such a heavy reliance on a narrow range of crops or crop varieties or animal breeds, they brings long-term increasing risk for agricultural productions, for livelihoods, and for nutrition. So it is the right time for us to look. I hope that it's the right time for us to look how the diverse agricultural production and diverse diets are usually reinforced between each other. So given that the consumer demand or the purchase power saved from the farmers, all these have to maintain an diverse array of crops, promoting diverse diets, which helps to conserve agricultural biodiversity and support rural development. Tribama was also mentioning about the biodiversity. So this biodiversity may be linked to nutrition in different ways. We can link at the macro level, at the farm level, and at the dietary level. At the macro level, the biodiversity plays a role in environmental services. They have a positive influence in agriculture and food production. including adaptation to climate change, soil protection, crop pollination, pest control, etc. It's an overview or a broad end. At the farm level, this can lead to greater production in foods, food stability. Again, there are some factors which increase productions, which reduces the loss of pesticides or prevention or weed combination, etc. So at farm level, the biodiversity has various rules. But at the individual level, at a dietary level for an individual, this is proposed to be a precondition. So we have to always have a precondition mind that whenever we sit with our plate, we have to analyze ourselves whether all the food groups have been included. As per ICMR, there are 11 food groups. So we cannot actually say an individual to consume all 11 food groups per day, but at least 6 we can. At least 6 we can include in our rule. So it's a precondition thought. So at a dietary level, this has to be included at an individual level by creating more awareness to the community. This will actually correlate with diversity and health benefits of an individual. This relationship is automatic. So many different plants or animals may be cultivated and they may gathered and diversity in the plate. So to promote this, the dietary diversity at an individual plate level, there are some things which we can or tips we can take in, like reorient the food and agricultural policies to encourage diversity, nutrition, sustainability, affordability, even at a small scale level, and use markets to support this diversity, production and consumption, the informal markets to thrive in, the procurement at the lower end, like linking between the agricultural and food linkages. This will actually improve the diversity again. And the major thing will be the promotion and awareness. Maintain the local crop varieties, crop varieties, seasonal foods, the local animal breeds, the underutilization of crops has to be stopped. And we need to develop marketing system for these things. So adjusting all these extension services and fostering synergy between them has to be improved a lot. So this would definitely actually bring in diversity at the individual state level.
Yes, very true, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah.
Those
Would
were
you like?
excellent points. Yeah, I would like to add, like following Dr. Tarani's amazing comments regarding biodiversity, linking biodiversity and nutrition. And like, I just have a slide. Even when we talk about millets, right, there are of millets that we are yet to explore. And this is some of like just an overview of some of the millets that we had. And like giving you a scientific data, because like, why having biodiversity and nutrition is how they are related is, these are some of the SEM images. You can see the structural morphology of these materials, though they all look the same, but at a microscopic level, they all vary. The composition, the protein, the carbohydrates, fats, like all the composition also varies. And something that was much more amazing is we did the study and we found that the amino acid profile, this is the essential amino acid profile, of which like there is like the diversity among millets. So consuming them, like, compared to wheat, rice and maize, the amount of essential amino acids present in these millets, even within the group and among the group, was so diverse. So consuming, so that's what makes it so. There is resource, there is all these amazing nutritional valuable compounds available, and it's like you have the solution for the answer there, but it's trying to approach and trying to adapt it and to incorporate into it. And she also said something about exposure or expressing these things, like, we develop these scientific methods, we understand this, but communicating to the common man and say that, yeah, you don't have to pay that much money to consume these major crops. Even your millets, your finger millet or your little millet could give you the same amount of iron or the amino acid profile that you can get from others also. So having that awareness is going to be really important.
Emphasizing on locally available foods, right, Kripa?
Yes, exactly. It's climate resilient, it's drought tolerant, you don't have to have so much of water, and it's increasing the biodiversity of the soil, of the agro-climatic region. So when you have so much nature positive outcomes, incorporating that into the agriculture system and connecting that's a solution that people should think about.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. So, is alternative plant protein, convenient food, GM foods, and organic foods, etc., act sustainable nutrition solutions?
Um, as technology grows, everything contributes, right? You cannot say this is the only solution. This is going to solve the world's problem. We cannot say that. Every technology, every new innovation tries to address and moves us up front. For example, I do have a slide on that. If you want, I can share. Give me one second. So regarding the alternative meats, right? We've heard about Beyond Meat. Have you heard about Beyond Meats? Impossible Burgers? Okay, so these are some of the big, like they were the pioneers, I would say. Beyond Meat kind of revolutionized, Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods revolutionized the alternative meat market. So actually, this is Professor Fu Hongshei, who was the inventor of this particular technology, and he was a professor at University of Missouri. So he was a food engineering professor, and that invention became Beyond Meat. So what in one way here what was the innovation was he took soy protein pea protein isolate and it was extruded into a twin screw extruder high moisture extrusion process, and by doing this we'll be able to align the fibers of something a plant matrix into a structure that resembles meat. So that was the innovation, right? And what happened, like currently, initially, this research was happening in a small scale lab, but now the company is bought and has gone to IPO, and you can find Pizza Hut, from McDonald's, everyone contribute, incorporating that into their product line, because it has benefits to improve the human health. It has a positive impact on climate change. It improves the animal welfare and also less resources. So that's one option, right? So you have multiple options. So when technology provides a solution, we should see how that's going to provide a positive impact, and then try to incorporate into the system. So, like even 50% of reduction or 20% of reduction of meat is going to improve the overall impact of climate change, or all the negative benefits that then negative actions that come out from animal animal husbandry aspects of it. So why not? When there is an option, why not go for it?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, both of you. Before we end this session, I would like to hear from each of you on what is the scope of higher learning in food technology, clinical nutrition, food science, and nutrition, etc. So, if you could, each one of you could just brief so that most of our viewers are students, so they will also get an idea on what they can do, like in a postgraduate or a undergraduate studies, what is open for them.
The food technology or food science is a science. It's a science branch that deals with the techniques involved in production, processing, preservation, packaging, labeling, quality management, and distribution of food products. The field also involves techniques and processes that are used to transform a raw materials to food. So recently, extensive research goes behind making food items edible as well as nutritious, the value-added foods which is seen in the market. Looking into the opportunity side, there are a plethora of opportunities for students who wish to pursue a course in technology or food science graduates as postgraduates. So I could actually give a glimpse of or list of universities in India, like in the broader perspective, after some successful completion of UG program. We have CFTRI in Mysore, that is Central Technological Research Institute, then DFRL in Mysore, and IFPRI, that is the International Quality Research Institute in New Delhi, then ICMR, that is NII, National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad, NIFTM, that is National Institute of Food Technology and Entrepreneurship Management in Haryana, IIMR, Indian Institute of Maize Research in Punjab, CMFPRI, that is Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute in Kochi, IISR, that is Indian Institute of Sugarcane Research, Uttar Pradesh, IIFPT, like Indian Institute of Food Processing Technology, Tanjavur, ICAR, Indian Institute of Agricultural Research, New Delhi, Indian Institute of Millet Research, Hyderabad, Central Institute of Fisheries Technology in Kochi, etc. We can actually make this list lengthy. So there are wide opportunities for your higher education. So coming to the professionals, or when it comes to the careers in terms of nutrition and dietetics, the career opportunities may include as a clinical dietitian in hospitals, health educators or community health workers, consultants in hospitals, diet consultants in hospitals, nutrition specialties, food technologists in terms of industries, nutrition therapists, toxicologists, product development officers. Even the government has opened up various opportunities or job openings, especially in collaboration with the ministries, the health ministries, like Ministry of Food Processing Industries, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Agriculture and Farmers Welfare Ministry, Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution Ministry, Women and Child Development Ministry, Animal Husbandry, Fisheries and Dairy Ministries, Skill Development, Entrepreneurship. These, in connection with these ministries, the government has let out a number of job openings in the government sector also. So this is an umbrella of programs at the Ministry of Health, which actually employs young graduates. For example, I can say there are PD officers, district program officers, joint directors of the noon programs. So likewise, they actually frequently take in candidates at the government level also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Krupa ma'am, would you like to add something?
Yeah, that was an extensive list of resources that Tarini ma'am gave. Just to add to a global perspective, like students, after you finish, you can come do a master's, PhD, create your own research program. So that's one option. And also, there's a lot of opportunities in FAO, that is Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, World Food Program, then WHO, even WHO has a food safety component of it. So from from a multinational global perspective, also students having this background have a wide range of opportunities. And also I would say, like, don't confine yourself to a set mold. You can create your own pathway, because you can have this background. And I know some people who had studied food and like food science, food technology, and they took law to do food law and like patent attorneys. So you can, what is your passion, you can drive, you can have food and connect to it. So that's how I would say there's no limitations to imagine new criterias and new pathways, and also connecting to the sustainable development goals, right? All those goals, if you can connect that dot with any of the SDGs and create a new stream, because the jobs that we have today, in 5 years, in 10 years, there's going to be new jobs, new names. So you need to be thinking about how are you going to prepare yourself for the future. And these, all what you're learning are the foundations, right? You're creating a nice foundation. So as the new jobs come or the new opportunities, you can tailor to the needs and like contribute uh, to those openings.
Thank you so much. So we had a wonderful session, and thank you so much, Tadni ma'am, and thank you so much, Kirupa ma'am, for joining us for today's session and sharing your valuable thoughts and information. So, students, that's all we have for you today, and I hope you all have enjoyed the session. And that was a lot of information, so you can view the session once again. It will be available in YouTube, so later you can view all these sessions that they have mentioned. And yeah, so that's all we have. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.